Yes, I think we're live.
Cool. Hello, everyone. So I'm going to quickly just share my screen. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar with KU Leuven, as well as my colleague Ilaria, who's also one of the university partnership managers at Unibuddy. So today's topic is around online recruitment with an impact at KU Leuven. And before we properly get started, I see we have quite a few participants already, but I just wanted to go through a few kind of house rules. So I know Ilaria and I have a lot of questions for Peter and Elaine at KU Leuven, but please do ask your own as well. So if you have any questions for either myself or Ilaria or Peter or Elaine, please do use the Q&A feature and we'll be getting to those at the end of the webinar. If you have any kind of comments or general chit chat, then you can use the chat box. And of course, we will be providing a recording of today's webinar after the session, and we'll be sharing that with everyone who attended after today's session. So I just wanted to kick off with a few introductions and introduce everyone and kind of what their roles are at KU Leuven. So I'm going to hand it over to Peter to start.
Good. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. My name is Peter. I'm a marketing and recruitment officer for KU Leuven. I've been in this function for around 5 years now. I'm actually just in my 6th year doing this. So I've seen the university from when it was not doing basically any international marketing and recruitment to just steadily expanding the scope of what we do now.
Perfect. Thank you, Peter. And Elaine, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Helene. I'm also a marketing and recruitment officer at KU Leuven. And I am concerned with the national marketing. And since I think 2 years, I'm also helping with the international marketing and recruitment. So I'm a little bit the sidekick of Peter.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we're really excited to have you on today's session. So thank you both for joining us. And I'll hand over to Ilaria as well from Unibuddy.
Thank you, Sophie. Hello, everyone. I am Ilaria. I'm one of the partnerships managers here at Unibuddy, and I specifically take care of our sort of prospective partners in France, Benelux, sort of Southern Europe, a mix of European territories. So basically, I just support universities and different institutions to, enabling them to just implement technology to support with their recruitment. Very happy to be here today.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And yes, hello, everyone. I'm Sophie. Same as Ilaria, I'm also one of our university partnership managers, and I look after the Nordics as well as Australia, New Zealand, but I don't think we'll have anyone joining from those regions right now. It's very late in the evening for them. So I've been with Unibuddy just over a year now, and same as Ilaria, I work with prospective universities that are interested in implementing Unibuddy and implementing kind of digital peer-to-peer to support with recruitment, outreach, marketing, etc. So very excited and happy to be helping present today's webinar. So very shortly, we're going to get into the kind of meaty Q&A session for the guys at KU Leuven, but just a little insight into some of the other topics that we'll be discussing. So of course, we're going to hear all about kind of KU Leuven's story, but primarily as well, the impact that implementing the student voice at KU Leuven has had on their kind of student recruitment and marketing activities, etc. We'll also be touching a little bit on kind of some of the marketing insights and trends that they've noticed as a result of using Unibuddy, but also the kind of wider digital activities. So some kind of student voice insights that you might be interested in hearing. And then of course, we'll be getting to any audience Q&As at the end as well. So on the kind of topic of kind of digital connection and connecting prospective students with your institution through your student voice, I just wanted to kind of set the scene a little bit before we move on to some of that Q&A. So we've obviously done a lot of research around this topic in kind of higher ed, and very interestingly, we know that 74% of prospective students would rather speak to a current student versus a staff member. So very pertinent to today's topic, and all around how important kind of peer-to-peer is in the prospective student decision-making journey. And on that note, we know that 87% of decisions are actually influenced by that personalised communication. Very important for kind of international recruitment, but also kind of wider diversity and inclusion. We also know that 1/5 of students never feel represented in student advertising. So this is around kind of how you can, as an institution, really showcase the diversity of your students and your student population online. And a platform like Unibuddy or a peer-to-peer platform is a really great way of doing that and really showcasing the diversity and the experiences that your students are having at your institution. And that's essentially where Unibuddy comes in. So I know today's webinar audience is a kind of mixture of some of our current partners, which is fantastic, but I think there's quite a few joining today that maybe aren't as familiar with Unibuddy. So I wanted to just quickly help you understand, if we're talking about Unibuddy in the future Q&A section, you kind of have a really basic understanding of what we do. So essentially our kind of main mission is to help students make better decisions through shared human experience. So deciding what institution to study at or what course to study and where is often one of the most important decisions that we make as a young adult. So we want to ensure that that decision isn't taken alone and you feel as confident and well informed to make that the best decision for you. And just a little bit of insight into what Unibuddy actually is and what it looks like. So essentially, in its very base form, it is a chat platform that lives on an institution's website. So KU Leuven are, of course, one of our university partners, and they have a Unibuddy platform that lives on their website and enables those conversations between prospective students, alumni, and staff, and current students, of course. And all those conversations are taking place through a mobile app, where of course you get all of the data and insights around what those conversations are about, how many students are chatting, and all of the valuable marketing insights that you can get from that as well. And then to look more closely at KU Leuven's platform and some of the ambassador students that they have that are on there and that are chatting with prospective students. We have 151 student ambassadors at KU Leuven that are on the Unibuddy platform having chats with prospective students from 62 different countries. So fantastic level of diversity there as well, and from 58 different programs. So we're going to, I think, kick off with some of the first few questions that we have for KU Leuven. But before we start, Peter and Elaine, I don't know if you want to kind of talk a little bit about some of these statistics and your Unibuddy platform before we start asking you some questions.
Yeah, I will explain a bit. So at the moment we are with 151 student ambassadors. I think we started with 20 2 years ago, and then it really went very fast. And now we are a big group. We try to cover most of our programs and also a lot of countries, depending on the countries from which we recruit the most. And now we really are looking to recruit specific ambassadors. So we don't say, yay, everyone can come, but we are really looking for ambassadors from several countries and several programs. So it's more, specific question that we are doing right now. But it's a big group, and I think this year we got more ambassadors, maybe because of the situation. I don't know, but we see that there's an expansion.
Absolutely, brilliant, fantastic to see that growth in the platform really quickly. Perfect. Well, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we can get into the Q&A section of the conversation.
Awesome, thanks, Sophie. And yes, I think I see already in the chat that there are some questions or comments about student ambassadors specifically, and I know that it tends to be a very interesting topic that lots of people have lots of questions about. So we'll make sure to touch upon that later on in this webinar today. But I wanted to kind of start by asking sort of a general question to both of you guys. I just wanted to know, how's it going in Belgium? What's the situation currently in Belgium as far as, can people come to university? Do they have to stay at home? What's happening there?
related to the pandemic. The current situation in Belgium is rather strict, and it's been that way for several months now. So we didn't loosen up, sort of say, for Christmas and stuff like that. But that way we also managed to avoid a lockdown. So it's been this way for a few months. Everybody's getting sick of it, but it's also like, yeah, we're getting used to it as well. And I think for the next few weeks, there's a lot of groups within society asking for about phasing out some of the regulations, and I think we'll start seeing some of the regulations being phased out for certain age groups. I'm thinking of university students as well within a few weeks, that they can start going to classes again in little groups and with safety measures. But for now, there's, yeah, just not much of that in place yet.
Got it. And so how did you sort of manage to organize? I guess everything will have to be online then. How did you manage to organize sort of
Yeah,
online classes and exams and those different activities?
the ethos of the university was offline when possible and online when needed. So back in September, when things were relatively okay, there were still some classes, especially for first-year students. They had some welcome activities in small groups. They experienced some classes also in smaller groups. So basically, to make the transition from secondary school to university a bit softer for them. So that was that, and but currently everything is online. And I think, but Helene, to say it if it's not correct, that first year students, first year bachelor students, that they have specific moments where they can meet with assistants and stuff like that as well, because otherwise it would be too hard to do everything online.
Yeah, that's correct. But it will, yeah, as like Peter said, it will be better in, I think, mid-March, because then there will be like I think 2 half days that they can go to, that everyone can follow classes live. We think, we hope.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just around sort of like induction activities, so this will have happened earlier in the year, I guess, well, last year. I'm just wondering, how did you manage to organize sort of like those virtual open days, such as, like orientation day, orientation week, maybe back in September, even before that, sort of like open days, admitted student days. How did you manage to go about that for your last student intake?
Yes, well, that really depends on the period and the measures. As Peter said, we always try to focus on the best experience for the students within the measures and with safety first, of course. But in September, we had a big offer live of the orientation days, but it was always in small groups and spread over time. And in February, the second intake for the second semester, we only could organize some walks live, but the rest was online. And then our open days, yeah, we had open days in March completely online. We have open days again now in March, also online. And for the international students, Corona gave us the opportunity to organize our first online open day for international. So it was the first time that we did it in December, because we learned a lot, and we thought, yeah, it's a great idea to implement it for our international students. So it's maybe something good the situation gave us.
Yeah, definitely happy to hear that. I feel like, yes, we had a lot of challenges, but I think we also learned different things. For example, internationals it's trickier for them to make it to a physical open day. So having sort of like a virtual alternative or a virtual option is definitely, will ensure maybe a bigger participation from students that are, have challenges reaching you. I also wanted to ask you, how did your students kind of sort of respond to that? I know that obviously this definitely impacted their university experience, but I wanted to see, what was their reaction to this virtual year?
Well, the reactions were very positive, so they were happy that we offered some alternatives, especially for the open days, because it gave them the opportunity to inform themselves. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see what will happen this year, because it's like we have a year online. If they are still happy with it, if they are still grateful, I have the feeling that maybe we will have less visitors because they are a bit, yeah, everyone is a bit sick of online. I hope not, but yeah, we will see what will happen. But it's the first reactions were very positive, and yeah, we will go on like this and see what happens. But as soon as we can organize something live, we will also do it, and we will make, I think we will make a combination of online and live, because also online has a lot of positive aspects we don't want to lose.
Absolutely, thank you for that. I'll hand over to Sophie for now as well.
Thank you. Amazing. So obviously you've talked a little bit about kind of moving and switching to that kind of digital first approach for your student recruitment. How did you kind of find that as a team at KU, and how do you think your prospective students have responded to that as well? Has it generally been a very kind of positive response?
We don't have any conclusive data yet for this intake because our application deadline is still a few weeks ahead. Obviously last year, when the pandemic started, our main intake had already closed, but we've seen a lot of deferrals, obviously. And for this intake, we hope that these deferrals, that they will apply again. And first signs do indicate that they will indeed apply. So we have good hopes there. And apart from, yeah, what the things that we did were mainly the online event that we already touched on. It was an idea that we had in the back of our heads for a lot of time, but we always managed to find an excuse not to start doing it. So yeah, we think that it's a keeper even after the pandemic. But apart from that, the virtual fairs, we've obviously participated in a few virtual events as well. We feel that they generate less questions, less interactions, so it's harder to evaluate them. You don't know after these events if it was a good one. You can start looking at some website statistics, but they don't tell you everything either. So yeah, it's hard, and also on a personal note, the interaction with the prospective students, being able to tell them to answer their questions about a program, that's the best part of the job. So that also went away a bit. So on a personal note, that was a bummer too.
Yeah, for sure. And it's great to see, you know, obviously you noted that impact on kind of enrollment and kind of dropouts, but it's great to see some kind of positive signs that you can hopefully have some sort of recovery for that for the next intake. And you obviously touched a little bit there on the response and how you found those digital events. Has there been anything that's kind of surprised you in terms of adapting to the kind of digital first approach and moving things online? Is there anything that's kind of shocked you about that?
It was interesting to see what big of a difference there was between the different event organizers. Because some event organizers, they definitely were able to find the prospects online and to get a lot of public to the events, and others apparently they did not reach anybody with the event. There literally was a fair that I participated in where I had 0 interactions. So there was a big difference, and I found that very interesting to see. On the plus side, we noticed how much time we spent traveling as well. And obviously this time we didn't have to do that. So that was on a positive side. Yeah. I think for the future, we'll go for a blended approach, some physical events, some virtual events, but we'll see how that lands and who will organize what in the future.
Yeah, Absolutely. That's something that I know, I'm sure I can speak for Larry as well. We're hearing a lot from institutions is this kind of blended approach for the future. And just on the kind of topic of what the rest of the year and beyond looks like, what are your kind of plans for the rest of the year and beyond? Do you have any kind of set things that you can maybe run through quickly now?
The thing is that we're currently reviewing our strategies, so there's not much to give you an update on. And I think we'll also do an evaluation of our current intake to see if we are going to change the approach. But obviously, when we're reviewing the current approach, we hope to start some physical events and some physical just start seeing some students, getting the name of the university out there, to do that in the future again.
Fantastic, brilliant, thank you so much. I think I'm going to hand it across to Larry again for some more questions on her side.
Thank you, Sophie. I wanted to touch briefly upon sort of like student well-being and sort of satisfaction at this time, and it's going to be quite quick, but I wanted to ask you guys, if you can comment on, what are your thoughts about the student sentiment at the moment? Obviously, you did say that you did have good responses from your students, which is excellent, given that, their university experience is being quite, impacted at the moment. So yes, I just wanted to know if you had anything to comment to that, and what can we do, in higher education to support their well-being and mental health in a moment like this?
Yeah, we are monitoring the situation closely, but the general feeling is that we are a bit concerned about the students. We think it's quite hard for them right now. I think especially for the international students, because our national students can go home sometimes, they have friends here, but internationals sometimes come alone. But we try to contact them as much as possible, and we do have an online offer for social contact. For example, I have contact with the ambassadors. A colleague tries to organize language tables. We have psychologists and so on. So we try to do a lot of follow-up, but it's the general feeling is that it is quite hard for the students, and it's also hard to organize. To keep on organizing things because they need social contact, and we can't organize social contact at the moment. So
yeah, I think based on what I hear, and I'm sure that Sophie will possibly echo that, it's definitely a challenge for everyone I'm speaking with to make sure that their students are receiving as much support as possible. But again, that as possible is quite limited because we cannot actually be that present. And I'm seeing a lot of interesting things when it comes to sort of like reaching out to students and setting up sort of like well-being activities or mental health support, anything like that. So I'm glad to see that people are being creative with that. But I wanted to ask you if you have observed any sort of trends maybe in the last year regarding what students tend to be wanting to talk about. Sometimes in different times they will want to talk about different things. So I'm wondering if you were able to see that last year.
Peter, you can say it.
No, I was going to add that our student services are the main office in our university concerned with talking to students, and we have certain staff who organize these activities for international students as well. And apart from that, obviously the faculties have a big role in that as well. So if you ask me on a really personal note, the only students that I usually talk to, but Helene knows more on this, are the prospective students, and their questions haven't really changed. They're asking about admissions or admission requirements or the programs or tuition fees and scholarships. But I guess that Helene will have a more sensible answer to your question.
Yeah, but it's true. The prospective students ask the same things. as previous. But I asked also our student ambassadors, and some of them say that prospective students are more concerned if the current online environment is as effective as before COVID. For example, the application procedure and visa, but it are more practical things. That are the things I heard from our ambassadors, that they have concerns about that, but overall it's the questions are the same as before, like tuition fees, admissions, and so on.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that. I'll hand over back to Sophie.
Perfect, thank you guys. You might have kind of already touched a little bit on this, but it's just to find out from you if you kind of noticed a shift in some of the trends or key themes that you're seeing with international students. Has there been kind of a real shift, do you think, in their priorities, or you know, what they're interested in hearing from KU Leuven's current students and staff?
We haven't grouped any the data yet, so we don't have the applications yet to see if there is a big difference in applications between certain programs. I mean, on a national level, it was in the news a few weeks ago that they're seeing a lot of more applications or registrations for healthcare programs and those kind of professions. But I don't have that impression yet. So obviously our business and engineering programs, we still do get a lot of questions for those. We hope that one of the main factors to choose for our university is the quality of our programs, obviously. So that's something that that we hope is still influencing the decision to come study for our university. But probably location, Belgium as a destination, and all of that good stuff as well. And my best guess would be that after the pandemic, location will become more important again because of the opportunities for tourism and all of that good stuff. But for last intake, I mean, back in March, we hoped that the lockdown would last a few weeks, and here we are now, a few months later. So I don't think that it influenced last intake, and obviously for this intake, we all hope that in September the pandemic will be over. So I don't know if it influenced on that part a lot,
Yeah.
if that makes sense to you.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think there's still, as you say, a lot still to learn in the coming months to really get an idea of the impact that it's had and the change that you've seen. And kind of on that note, obviously, you know, the last year or so has brought up so many kind of unique challenges. What would you say are some of the, you know, key main learnings that you've had over the course of the last 12 months? What are you going to really take forward into your kind of future strategy and learnings?
Well, I think keynote is that the combination of online and live is worth a lot. As I said before, we organized for the first time an international online open day, and we reached many students who we would not otherwise reach. And we also have noticed that the online aspect is an added value for our national audience, because during our national online open days, they asked different questions than during live open days. And they can also compare more programs, and they can compare better. So we would like, we want to make a combination of both, because we think the online aspect is very important, but the live open days, coming to the campuses, speaking with people is also important. So, and I think that was for us the most important learning.
Fantastic, brilliant, thank you so much. I'm going to hand it across to Ilaria again.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we've definitely seen last year that sort of prospective students are inundated with different, you know, online events and outreach campaigns, as obviously, you know, we're kind of over communicating, as it's fair, because obviously now you cannot actually over communicate. But I was wondering, how are you guys differentiating your messaging to make sure that you're standing out in the sea of virtual events and all of that?
Obviously, we have a lot to learn together with all of the colleagues present here, probably. What we want to avoid is to be involved in some kind of race to about who shouts the loudest. One of the reasons that we started using student ambassadors a few years ago was because we really thought that voice of authenticity would be important. The thing is that we've always said with amongst ourselves in our meetings and with the colleagues that we don't just want the intake of as many students. We want the right students who will be happy at our university, good students, and if they graduate when a year later, 2 years later, maybe some more, if they're bachelor students, that they become ambassadors for the university as well. So the thing is that we really want our students to be well informed, to have been answered on all of their questions on an as open as we can and as truthful as we can. So that's also one of the reasons, as mentioned, that we've chosen Unibuddy and student ambassadors. So how to stand out? I think we try to be there for students who are looking for information, but we don't really want to stand out. We want to be there for students who are looking for information and that let them find us. And then our job for me and Helene and the other colleagues is to be as open and as truthful as possible so that they can make an informed decision about what program and what destination to choose.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, you don't have to be the one that shouts the loudest, but it's important to communicate your authentic message. I think that it's a lot to think about there. And yeah, when it comes to, I think we briefly touched upon this earlier, but I wanted to ask you guys, I mean, even like gut feeling, what types of events, obviously we're talking about a blended, a hybrid system moving forwards between in-person events and online events. What types of events do you think will be in person, back to in person, and what types do you think will stay online?
Well, a no-brainer would be the events such as EAIE and NAFSA and all of that good stuff, just to meet you and our colleagues from other universities again. The events, the recruitment events, I honestly don't know. That would depend on how we evaluate the last events, because, for instance, you can go to Asia for a student fair, but you lose 2 days or even more traveling for a fair that maybe takes, I don't know, 8 hours. So, but yeah, I don't have the impression that the event suppliers that were used to organizing the physical events, that they plan to do online events after the pandemic. So yeah, I think we'll see what offer is there and what we want to do. But I would choose, as mentioned by Helene, for a sort of blended approach, maybe on the destinations that are easy to reach, and to have physical events, and afterwards on in places that are a bit further, to have some virtual opportunities as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think I will kind of hand it over back to Sophie so that we can start talking a little bit about student ambassadors that I know a lot of people are asking about.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Hearing more about how universities kind of run their ambassador scheme and Unibuddy program is always one of the most kind of hot topics, I guess, during these webinars. So I've already seen some questions about it in the chat, but hopefully this kind of upcoming conversation will answer some of those. But I'd love to hear kind of how you guys are finding it working with your student ambassadors, and to kind of segue onto how do you go about recruiting those ambassadors, and how you incentivize them. Often one of the questions that we get from universities is, are your students paid? Do you pay them, or how do you kind of train and incentivize them? So That's quite a loaded question, but I'll ask that to you guys as well.
Yeah, well, how are we finding working with student ambassadors? Yeah, it's a very rewarding project because you really can see the impact on prospective students and how much support they receive from it. It's also nice to work with the ambassadors because they are always very enthusiastic. They want to represent university, and they also have a lot of good ideas for us. So it really is an added value to our recruitment and to give information to prospective students. We recruit them through the faculties and the programs. We just ask them to make their students enthusiastic, and then they send us an email if they want to be part of the program. And in addition, we do some general communication on the basis of flyers and posters, but that's like a small part of it. For us, it was quite easy to recruit ambassadors, especially now because there are a lot of friends of ambassadors who are coming and who are joining our program. So it's not, for us, it's not that hard to recruit them. And at the moment we are recruiting a bit less because 150 ambassadors, it's quite a lot to manage. We are with 2 to manage them. So, and they cover a lot of nationalities, a lot of programs. So we still recruit them. Everyone is still welcome, but the publication is a bit less. We don't pay them. We just try to keep them enthusiastic from themselves. But what we do is we try to meet them at least twice a year to go over everything, just a small recap, to get to know them better, to give them the opportunity to get to know each other. And we always treat them to pizza. So that's a bit like something we always do, and they are used to it. They really love it. And a new project at the moment is that we will try to work with a ambassadors committee, a party committee, so that they can organize activities as well as fun activities, but also more activities about, for example, how do I communicate the difference between cultures and so on. So more, I don't know how to say, but we have the fun part and also the more serious parts. We also have a WhatsApp group with all the ambassadors, so they can ask each other questions in the group. And at the moment, they also chat with each other to, for example, to go for a walk. And from us, they receive a certificate from the university and also a sweater. So we give them some activities, we give them a certificate and a sweater. And we always say that they are doing very important work, and we really give them the name of you are a student ambassador, and they like to being part of being part of this program. And yeah.
Fab. Yeah, I know that's whether to have a kind of voluntary ambassador program or to have a paid up ambassador program is often, you know, a conversation that universities are keen to engage in. So it's great to hear that there is such diversity, I think, amongst the universities that we work with versus the ones that pay their ambassadors. Some have really powerful and engaging kind of voluntary programs where, as you say, you know, provide pizza, you know, maybe a university hoodie, and the key really is to recruit those really engaged and passionate students. I think that's one of the most important things. So thank you for providing a bit of clarity around that. I'd also love to hear, because again, I think one of these questions has come up in the chat as well, is how to ensure that your student ambassadors are providing, you know, the right sort of information and the sort of information that you would want to provide. So how do you ensure that that's happening? I know a lot of it is around recruitment, but I'd like to hear from you how you guys do that at KU Leuven.
Yeah. We always give them a training, an ambassador's training at the beginning of each semester. We base our trainings also on the information we got from Unibody, and then we give also a training about KU Leuven, what is the university, what's important. We don't look at the grades of our ambassadors, but rather at their personality. And that's why we think it's also important to meet every student before they start. So we do an intake twice a year, sometimes a bit more when they can join, but we see every ambassador and we talk with every ambassador, and we think that's important, that they are enthusiastic and that they can tell their own story. So yeah, that's what we do.
Brilliant. Perfect. Well, I think it's fantastic. You know, one of the things the universities always ask is, how do I ensure that my ambassadors are happy and motivated and feel supported in their role as a student ambassador? And I think you know, some of the information that you've just gone through, I think is a really great example of how to do that successfully. So thank you. I'm going to hand it across to Ilaria, I think, for some final questions, and then we do have some questions from the audience, so we'll get to those as well.
Thanks, Sophie. Yes, I think I'll kind of wrap it up with just a few final questions, as I do see the chat being quite active. But I wanted to ask you guys, obviously Unibuddy is able to sort of like, you know, give you some insights into the conversations that your prospects are having with your ambassadors. You will know, you know, what are they most interested in asking about, maybe some information that is lacking or something that should be pushed out more timely. And yeah, I wanted to kind of ask you, how are you leveraging the insights generated from those conversations in maybe informing your marketing?
Yeah. Well, every now and then we analyze the conversations, but we do not do a follow-up of every conversation because, yeah, that is too much, and I don't think it's also necessary. But when we use the statistics, and sometimes we also analyze everything, and we use that to optimize our the information on our website, and also the information in our email marketing. So it is useful just to see when, oh, they have a lot of questions about tuition fees. Let's have a look at the tuition fee website and let's make an upgrade. So we use it, but we don't follow up every sentence they write about university.
And maybe also add that they are allowed to say things that they don't like about the university. So, I mean, if a student ambassador would be not happy about being a student ambassador or not happy at the university, we hope that he or she will come to us first and maybe tell us that they don't want to be a student ambassador anymore. But apart from that, our students are allowed to say the stuff that they feel might be better elsewhere or that they don't like about the university because of the voice of authenticity that we mentioned earlier. So they what we won't do is read through all of messages, and when the student ambassador is saying stuff we don't like, get in touch with him or her about that. So yeah, I think that's what was part of your question as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do get a lot of questions about, oh, how do you make sure that ambassadors are saying the right things, which is, yes, it's definitely true. I think the moment where you choose your student ambassadors, of course, again, you're choosing enthusiastic people, but it is about keeping it authentic. And I think, you know, prospective students will know that not everything about their university is perfect. I know that definitely not everything about my university was perfect, far from it, in fact. So, you know, that's completely fine. Yeah, and I think my last question is going to be, how do you promote the Unibuddy platform to your prospective students? So how do you make sure that they find it and are able to, you know that they can chat with people?
Yeah, we promote our ambassadors, especially in our emails, but also it's mentioned on the website and in our publications and during open days. It's super popular, and I also think that might be that just the prospective students are typing in Google chat with students KU Leuven and they find it. So we don't promote it through like extra campaigns or Facebook advertising, but I have the feeling that prospective students find their way to our ambassadors also. So.
Perfect. Thank you, Helene. I think it's already time to open up to questions from the audience. So I'll go through the chat and I'll start from the beginning, I think. I think some of them will have maybe touched upon already. Yes, I think somebody's asking, it's an observation, but I think it's important to touch upon it as well. Somebody's saying that they agree with the fact that students like to talk to other students, of course, but it also depends on the question. So sometimes some questions about student life and experience will be best answered by students themselves. But when it comes to administrative stuff, so admin things, maybe more logistics, maybe a student will not be best placed, and maybe they will redirect the prospect. So yes, I know that I'm not sure if you guys are doing this, but yes, what do you do in case an ambassador is not best placed to answer and a staff member would be better placed?
Yeah, I have two answers on that question, I think. First of all, for example, during our online open day, we always let the prospective students ask questions to current students, but also to professors, so they can choose. And I think for them, it's quite clear what they can ask to which person. And we always say to our ambassadors, for example, you're not the admissions office. If you have a question about admissions, just say that they have to go to admissions, and you can help and you can say what your experience was. But there is a big difference between what the ambassadors can say and what our general services can say. So, and we also say it, for example, in the promotion of the student ambassadors, we promoted like, do you want to have a bit more insight in student life? So I think it's correct that not all the questions can be sent to student ambassadors.
Absolutely, yeah. And just to, in some cases, yes, a staff member is best placed, and we do offer the opportunity to kind of have staff members on the platform as well, which is something that, depending on your own university, you will decide whether it works for you or not. But yeah, we did see that many times. Yeah, maybe having staff members as well was quite valuable. Another question is around, yes, if you train the students, I think we touched upon this already. And what about the quality of the answer and the speed? So yes, do they go back, answer in time?
Yes, we ask our student ambassadors to answer within 24 hours. Sometimes it's not possible for them, and we really understand it, so we are not that strict. But if an ambassador, you can see if they have like a lot of unanswered questions. And if we see that there are a lot, we send an email to our ambassador and we ask, is everything okay? Can we help? Maybe it's too busy. And then, yeah, we try to solve it right like that.
Yeah, awesome. And then there's a question around, yes, alumni. So do you include them in your ambassadors team? And if so, how do you reward them?
Yeah, we don't include them in our ambassadors team. Yeah, I don't have to, yeah, Peter might
Yeah, I was going to say that it's one of the big questions here at the university, how, if and how we include alumni in promoting the university, because I've mentioned that we want our alumni to be proud that they studied at KU Leuven, and I've mentioned that we want them to have a good experience here, but what to do with that afterwards and how to like use that sentiment, we haven't really figured that out yet. So if anybody has some good ideas, please tell us.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think, questions about alumni as well. I do see a lot of universities using them, especially if they have like a strong alumni network. And not most of the time, but many times it will be business schools, obviously. Maybe alumni are even like in the spotlight, like at the center of their ambassador scheme. So I think it definitely depends on your alumni network, if you have a strong one, and how much are your prospects, how much do they need to speak with alumni? If you do see that a lot of questions are around careers, and you will be able to see that again in the insights, the topics of the conversations, you'll be able to see it. If a lot is about careers, then yes, maybe it's time to bring your alumni in. About rewarding them, I think yes, it's definitely up for debate, because many times any sort of like monetary reward doesn't work with alumni, but many times they will be sort of happy to give back to their university. So many times they don't need any type of incentive, which is probably good news. But yeah, lots of questions about alumni, I think, that we're getting at the moment as well. Someone is asking about, you have about 150 ambassadors. How about the amount of questions in total on a yearly base? Do you have any information on that? And is it possible that one student does not get any questions and others get many?
Yeah, well, I don't know the amount yearly of questions. It is possible that some students get many questions. That really depends on the program they are in, and also from which nationality they are from. And we have some students that send us an email, is everything okay with the app, because I don't get a lot of questions. And yeah, that might happen. And then we just, we analyze a bit his profile. And it might be that, for example, it's a PhDer in a certain program that has not a lot of students. And then, yeah, we just think we don't have to recruit for that program anymore. But yeah, it's at the beginning, it was difficult to predict. And now we look at it and we keep that in mind when we recruit other students.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question is around, well, turnaround actually. So do you use your same ambassadors for more than 1 year? So yeah, how long do you keep them for? And you also mentioned that ambassadors receive a certificate. Is that at the end of their total term or every year?
Yeah. We have programs of only 1 year, and some programs are longer. So we keep the students as long as the ambassadors, as long as they are students. But we noticed that many of our international students start here for one program and then stay longer, so they can stay ambassador for a longer time. And the certificate, they receive it yearly. After each year we send the invitation to complete it, but it's actually, if you are ambassador for 3 years, it has the value of one certificate, namely that they were student ambassador.
Got it, thank you. Another question is around nationalities. So do you have any strategy in nationalities? Like, for instance, if you want to attract more students from, let's say, Iran, do you choose more ambassadors from Iran, or is there no strategies behind the nationalities of the ambassadors? Hope that makes sense.
Peter, do you start, or okay, I will. So there is a bit strategy. For example, when we have the feeling that there are a lot of students from Thailand, or we have a focus from the University of Thailand, we are looking for Thai ambassadors. But we don't, if we have like 1 or 2 ambassadors from a country, we are happy with it. And at the moment, we are just looking that we have like over the whole world, we have enough ambassadors from each region. So there is a strategy, but it fixes itself also, because it's not quite hard to follow the strategy.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. I do see that a lot of times, one university starts with a certain group of ambassadors. Maybe again, they want to recruit from a specific country, therefore they'll have a lot of ambassadors from that country. But then again, you kind of adjust as you go, because it's quite fluid, it's quite flexible, you can kind of bring on new people. So yes, I definitely agree with, you don't have to have like a rigid strategy, for sure. You can kind of see as you go. There is a next question that maybe I will redirect to Sophie. It's around, I think, Unibuddy more specifically, and it's what kind of data / insights provides Unibuddy that can be used for the training? Is it like FAQs or most asked topics?
Yeah, absolutely. So we provide training for universities that join Unibuddy initially for their ambassadors. So we run pretty regular, I think it's every 2 weeks, but it can be more regular depending on how many new institutions we have joining Unibuddy at that particular time. So we do provide resources to the universities that they can help with recruitment of and training of ambassadors, and certainly commonly asked topics and the types of questions that prospective students tend to ask is certainly forms part of that training. So it's all around obviously the app. So all of the Unibuddy ambassadors will have the Unibuddy app, and that's what they're using to get in touch with and respond to inquiries from prospective students. So some of the training is around how to use that very simple app, how to get the most out of it. And certainly, yes, we would look at helping students to understand the types of questions and topics that will be discussed in those conversations.
Awesome. I saw a very interesting question around this year. So students who started as students in the COVID year, do you find they are suitable or representative enough to become student ambassadors? I would love to know that myself, actually.
Yeah, as I said, we recruited this year also student ambassadors. We recruited less, but that was not because of the COVID year, but just because to keep it manageable. But we had the same question from our students, from interested student ambassadors. Am I suitable to join the program? And we said yes, because they still got through the admissions procedure, they still arrived in Belgium, and they are still following classes. And if they are honest about it, that they can tell something about the party life in our cities, for us it's okay. So we don't want to exclude them just because they maybe arrived at the wrong moment, because they still can give some valuable answers.
That's really good to know. I'm very glad to hear that, to be honest. We're almost at the end of our time today, so I think it's time to kind of wrap up. Thank you so much to everyone for all the good questions. And we will both make sure to follow up with you guys. And, if you have more questions, we're more than happy to kind of go through them later on as well. I just wanted to kind of quickly wrap up by talking about the impact that Unibuddy can have on your recruitment strategy. The chat with our student call to action is, of course, very effective. It's actually 5 times more effective than any other call to action. And so this can result in an impact at every stage of your recruitment funnel, starting from more applications to more offer holder conversion. So when you do make an offer, more students are likely to accept it. And this can also result into an overall increase in your enrollment numbers, if that's something that you're interested in. And I always like to talk about Erasmus University in Rotterdam, and they saw that 90% of people that had an offer and chatted actually enrolled at their university, which is a really impressive sort of stat. And yes, I think we've got a lot of university partners in Europe. So a lot of people that have started implementing our technology. And we will be more than happy to continue this conversation, follow up with you guys later today or later this week. You have our email addresses there. You will receive the recording from this session today. And if there is anything else that you would like to know, after today, we'll be more than happy to get in touch with you guys. So thank you, Peter and Elaine, for your participation. Thank you, Sophie, for presenting as well. And thank you to the attendees for all the really good questions too.
Thanks
and you for hosting.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.